Welcome to the STARS program, seniors taking active roles in society. And now, here's your host, ANITA FINLEY.
So they say that South Florida didn't have any culture. Well, it didn't maybe about 30 years ago, but it's loaded with cultural events. And we're very excited to have SKYE WHITCOMB, who's the artistic director of the Outre Theatre Company, Outre Theatre Company at the Pompano Beach Cultural Center here with us, telling us about what's going to happen. This is a whole new adventure for you.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And thank you so much for having me on here. We are now one of the resident companies operating out of the brand new Pompano Beach Cultural Center. It's a beautiful $20 million building that is just opened on Atlantic Boulevard. And we will be performing as our first show there, George Orwell's 1984, adapted by Andrew White.
And you know, it'd be amazing how many people, young people, haven't seen it and have no idea about it. We can't wait for this to come out.
Oh, it's exactly. It's one of those works that is more timely than it's ever been. It's when we look around at our current political climate and the way that the world appears to be headed, 1984 is one of those works that just speaks to us right now, and so we had a lot of fun with it. We've begun our rehearsals, and we're trying not to hit people over the head with it. People are smart enough to draw their own conclusions from it, but we thought that it was a wonderfully timely piece to do right now.
So tell us a little bit of your background.
Well, I'm the artistic director of the company and one of the founders. We began the company about 6 years ago. This is our sixth full season. I am not a native Floridian. I am an Army brat. My father was military. We moved all over the world when I was growing up. And when I graduated college, my wife and I moved to Savannah, Georgia, and then we moved to here and began getting into the theater scene down here. And she herself is an actor, and we're having a lot of fun with it so far.
Okay, and so you've gone into a profession which is tough.
Yes.
We know it's tough, and especially if you do high quality work and they aren't musicals.
Right, right.
You need to have a sophisticated audience, but they are here. It's
yes.
You need to promote it, that's what it is, and they'll come, as you know, because you said that you were at Meisner Park before this.
Yes.
And so that's, that was a good start, and then we know that there are some serious, and I'll just mention the name Louis Terrell and some other people, even the Drama Works. That do
Palm Beach Drama Works. Yes,
and we go to that every time. But I'm always interested in what people like you do because you have to have great dedication to do this. This isn't casual.
Well, we spend a great deal of time on not just the shows themselves, but the company as a whole. This particular show, right now, my team and I, not including the cast, but our production team, we're putting in probably about 70 hours a week so far. That'll jump up to about 100 once we get towards the production itself. But it's something that you have to have a passion for and a love for doing. And as you said, the audience is here. Yeah. Our audiences in South Florida, while, yes, there's a place for the musicals and for the light comedies, and we should always have those, there's also our audience for those deeper and more thought-provoking works like 1984, and we're happy to welcome them into the kind of work that we do. And
so thinking about this, as the artistic director, you, of course, have a set designer, you have everybody else, but are you in charge then of everything?
I and one other person. My managing director is Doug Wetzel, and I take care of the artistic side, and he takes care of the business side. And then we have our core group of people who really are the company. We've got our director of finance. We have the assistant artistic director. We have our nonprofit guru and technical director. But we do hire, we've got that core group of 5 who really is Outre. And we ourselves we hire set designers, as you said, lighting designers, costume designers, our actors, obviously, our accompanists, and all the other techs. We probably employ for each show probably somewhere around 30 to 50 people, depending upon the show.
So we know that ticket sales don't do it. So we need to have sponsors, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And so we want to help people who are listening now. Please do go buy tickets. I'm going to tell you how you can do that to the first show. When does the show open?
The show opens July 13th. That's a Thursday. That'll be the soft opening. And we run through July 30th. If you're wanting to come, though, the gala night, our gala opening, is Saturday, July 15th.
Okay, but let me give you a phone number. Everybody call this number if you want information. It's 954-300-2149. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, 954-300-2149. And find out about the tickets, and you ought to buy them. Are you selling a subscription also?
Yes, we do have a season subscription that can be purchased through the Pompano Beach Cultural Center's website or through their phone number. The season includes 1984, and then in November we're doing a musical. We're doing American Idiot, and then in February we're doing a East Coast premiere. It's called Reservoir Dolls. It is a reimagining of Tarantino's film with an all-female cast. And this will actually be the first time that it's ever been directed by a woman. The playwright is flying down from Seattle to see it. And then we finish out the season with another musical, Hedwig and the Angry Inch.
I haven't heard of some of these things,
Really?
so that's good.
Hedwig is just a wonderful piece. It's deals a lot with the transgender population. It's a comedy, but it's really heart-wrenching as well.
Good. Well, I will be somebody that's going to come. I want to, and I'll try to help you promote as much as I can because I know Kay Renz has been wonderful too. She's I know working with you, and she does help with a lot of the theaters around town. So let's just get through this 1984.
Yes, ma'am.
What do you think, George Orwell? Why did George Orwell think about this? I don't know much about him. I'm sure you had to study him before you did this.
Yes, and he wrote this in 1948. So we're talking about.
Oh, I didn't even realize that he wrote this in 1948.
Yes.
Wow.
And so we're just 3 years out of the end of World War II. And he saw the rise and fall of Nazism, and he saw the rise and fall of communism in Russia, or he saw the rise and it taking power and the Cold War starting. And you had so many people in Britain, where he was from, and in America who were saying, oh, it could never happen here. It could never happen here. And so he wanted to show what it would be if it happened here, how easily it could happen here, how easily we could be swayed to that kind of totalitarianism and that kind of dictatorship without even really realizing that we were giving up our rights and giving up our sense of individuality. And so that's why he wrote the book. And he said it in 1984 as sort of the world turned on its head. He wrote it in 48. He places it in 84 so that it's like the world has been reversed. And so again, for us to look at it now, it appears to be so timely because a lot of what he said, these are the steps. Watch out for these steps. We just went ahead and took them. And yes, we headed in that direction. Even
70 years later.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And did he do more things? I just don't know much about him.
He did write several other works, and he was a journalist as well. He worked for the BBC. The other work that he's most famous for is Animal Farm.
I forgot I read that in college. Oh, my goodness, that was his?
Oh, yes.
Yes. He was quite a thinker, wasn't he?
He was, and he wanted to warn us, both with Animal Farm and with 84, of how easily a democracy can fall into a dictatorship or a totalitarian state so that we would take steps to avoid it.
When did he write Animal Farm? Do you know?
Animal Farm was 1953, I believe.
So right after that. Oh, thank you. That makes it even more impressive that happened. Okay, so a little bit about how. You said you had about a capacity of about 300 seats, but you're going to be going with 200.
Yes,
and people need to buy their tickets, of course. But the other thing really is, I see you have a diverse program then. So you do have some musicals, you do have some serious theater. So what you're hoping for, though, are some sponsors. We need to get somebody. Do you have any at this moment? Any big sponsors?
We do not. We rely upon our board and really upon us, myself and Doug Wetzel and the other members of Outre. Ticket sales account for probably about 40% of our operating expenditures. And we want to make sure that we pay everybody who works for us and that we pay them a living wage or as close to it as we can. And so the rest of it really just comes out of our pockets. We
Right.
support this.
So we need to have banks. Oh, anybody listening to this show, if you're a financial guy or, you're a company that would like to support theater and do something really good, this is your opportunity because it's the ground, you're right on the ground here.
Right as we're getting started here in Pompano.
Tell me what else is in the new cultural center.
There are 9 other companies that perform there. We're one of the few that this is our home. We don't perform anywhere else. We just perform there. But we also have the South Florida Chamber Ensemble performs there. And they perform. Their primary home is down in Fort Lauderdale at the Sunshine Cathedral. Who else? We've got the Florida Classic Ballet. I just saw their performance, their spring gala a couple weeks ago. It was absolutely stunning. Dance Now Miami is there. Fushu Daiko, the taiko drummers, the Japanese drummers that you see up at the Murakami all the time, they perform there as well. So you have a very diverse group of artists that are coming in and performing there. And as resident companies, we are the ones that sort of form the core of the programming there. And then you have those few of us that we don't perform anywhere else.
Right.
Outre, that is our home.
Okay, so now I know that the person that founded the whole cultural center there, wasn't she the one that did Arts Garage?
Aliona Usha she's the head of the creatives, and she's they're the managing company of the center. Now, the center was something that the city of Pompano had decided that they wanted to do some time ago. They had gotten money to build a new library, and then they decided, well, we want to expand culture here in Pompano. They had put together the Ali Cultural Center and Baca, and trying to bring more artists into the Pompano area. And so when they decided they were going to build this library, they decided, well, let's make it a cultural center as well. And that's where that began. And then the creatives, the cultural arts creatives, were brought in to manage the building as well as the Pompano Beach Amphitheater as it was being built and as we start to get started. But yes, it's the same management team that started Arts Garage.
Well, as I'm standing here, I'll just tell you something. It hasn't anything to do with what you've said, but in a way, it has to do with Pompano. In the 1980s, my husband came up. He's been a developer. He came up with an idea and very much into culture. He started Sunfest. I mean, that's who he is. But anyway, he said, we need something called a restaurant park. And the problem is he needed to have something off I-95 so it would attract attention. So nothing would do, but on Copans Road, there were about 25 acres. And he saw that. And they were zoned residential. And because he was involved, he was the president of the John D. MacArthur properties all over the state, he sent me and his architect down there to change the status of residential to commercial so we could build that. A restaurant park would have had maybe 12 restaurants, and it would have been all walled off, pardon the expression, and you would have had to pay to get in, more like a Disney.
Wow.
And so that's why, because Pompano never had anything.
Right.
And so we convinced the city fathers to change it. That was a big deal because we had to really make them know that this was going to be great for them. And that we did. It took 2 years, and we did it. So now we went to the bank. This is kind of funny to talk about this on radio, but when I think about Pompano, we were going to be the gateway to Pompano in Copans Road. So we went to the bank to get the kind of loan based on commercial, because it changes, of course, the amount of money. They wouldn't do it.
Really?
They wouldn't do it, but we did change the resident commercial, so we sold it to someone else, and made a nice profit, which very big disappointment. Made the profit, and then they sold it to someone else, made a lot more money. But now you see there, a big car dealership. It's it was such a disappointment. That's why for me, I am so glad that something is there on Atlantic Avenue that's going to now be important.
Yes.
The only thing they need now is a huge, like they do Pineapple Grove, they need something that says, this is Pompano, folks.
Right. And I know exactly what you mean over in Delray.
Of course.
Yeah.
They need to say, okay, this is the entrance now. Atlantic Avenue, come here and go to the cultural center, and of course, go talk to SKYE and go see, 1984. But that's why when you're talking, I just thought about that. It was just, those things happen. But it was obvious it needed something. Because it's a wonderful city, but it's just been like one of the cities you pass by. It's nothing of any importance.
I was speaking actually with another one of the companies, the artistic director of another one of the companies there at the Cultural Center, and he said that for him, Pompano was always the town that you drove through on your way from Fort Lauderdale to Boca. And
that's right.
Now he's looking at this differently.
Yes.
Now that we've starting to get all of these companies in and all of these
Right.
artists coming in to sort of revitalize.
So now it should be Fort Lauderdale, Pompano, and Boca.
Right. Right.
No, that's good. Well, we'll do, what we can do to help you too. But let's go back to a question I always ask artistic directors. So you're going to have 4 shows, and you probably have hundreds of shows that are being presented to you for possibilities. How do you make those decisions?
A lot of it has to do with looking at what's happening in the world. Our purpose as an artistic company is to provoke thought. We put on works that make people think and make people act. And so when we start looking for what are we going to do for this next season, and that's generally in November of the previous year, we'll start looking at what are we going to do the following September. So about 9 months ahead of time, we start looking what's going on in the world right now. How can we talk with people and use art as a way of sparking a conversation? And so, of course, November we had the elections. And so at that point, we said, all right, well, this is a show that we've wanted to do for some time. Now is the time to do it. And as the months have gone on, it's just become more and more relevant to what is happening. And a lot of our works, we think about it in that way, like with Reservoir Dolls, the conversation there about violence and women, and why do we look at violence differently depending upon who's the victim and who's the perpetrator? And that's the kind of conversations that we want to spark. And with 1984, we want people to start looking at the world around them and to say, okay, Orwell was pretty prescient.
Well, are you going to then have, maybe right after the show, a little discussion for people? Do you ever do that?
We do. On particular nights. And on that gala night, on that 15th, we will be having a talk back with myself and with the actors so that folks can begin that conversation, and hopefully that conversation won't just stop at the theater doors, that it's something that they'll continue with them out of the building and into their cars and off to dinner, and the next day when they get up in the morning. That's what we're aiming for. We want that conversation to start and just keep going.
Yeah, that's really nice. I am really glad that you came here to do this. My guest is SKYE WHITCOMB. He is the artistic director of the Outré Theatre Company at the Pompano Beach Cultural Center. I want to give you a phone number that you can call for, and I guess the number I gave you is the 954-300-2149, correct?
Yes,
that
that
they
is
can
ours.
Buy tickets.
That would be...
Well, what would be better?
What would be better for the tickets is the Pompano Beach Cultural Center number, and I'll be frank with you, I don't have that.
That's okay. Well, what
on
about
me.
your website? Let's get them to a website.
They can go to...
Oh, I see. Is it OutreTheatre.com?
OutreTheatreCompany.com.
Oh, Outre Theatre. That's OUTRE theatrecompany.com.
Or they can go to ccpompano.org.
ccpompano.org.
And that is the website for the Cultural Center itself.
That's easy. ccpompano.org is a very easy way to do this. Please do that. We hope that people will now help this theater get going. It sounds like some of the shows are going to be spectacular, and get away from the television. It is such an addiction. Get to something that's better. And the one thing and I've seen some shows lately where there's so much conversation, and you wonder, how do actors, everyone asks you that, how can they remember all the lines? Now, is it true, though, that sometimes the lines aren't exact? Every time they do it, there's something else they stick in?
That is very true. There's often actors will be in the heat of the moment, and they're in that character, and they know what that character would say, and what comes out is not exactly what the playwright wrote, but it's close, and it's with the same intention. And when it's something like that, that's okay. But when there are times where,
we're not going to do that with Shakespeare.
No. But then there are times with, like with comedies, where you'll have actors who'll just riff on what's going on. I don't know if you got a chance to see Spamalot up at the Kravis, but the actors up there were doing riffs on current events all the way through the performance itself.
So that is what happens, that people they do have to they have to learn their lines, of course, and that's really. And someone also said to me, because I've not been in that field, that once you really understand the two characters, it's really a conversation, and the words just. It's not like you just remember it rote. It's a conversation, and that's what you and I would say.
Exactly. Once you've gotten into that character itself, and you're just speaking with another person, and the audience almost goes away. You're not even really paying attention to them anymore. You're in this place, and you're talking with this person, and that is absolute magic. And we sort of a cliche. We talk about the magic of theater, but it is this moment where we've just got two individuals talking, and they're so real, and they're absolutely truthful. And those are those moments when we as audience members, we sit and we're enraptured. We can't take our eyes off these actors.
And how's your sound system? Because
the sound system in there is beautiful. It is brand new. Everything is wonderful in there.
And there will be, for people who don't hear well, you'll have the
assisted
earphones.
Listening devices. Yes, they do.
And the one thing that I, as as someone who goes to theater and as a gerontologist understands what happens with an older person, when you get into dialects, Irish or some really, it's very hard for an older person to listen. Even though I know it's important, we had that problem up at the Drama Works, as a matter of fact. It's too sad because the words are beautiful, they're wonderful, and I know that you have to have the character correctly, and I'm just making a suggestion that when you do it, if you can figure out how to maybe have a few words that sound Irish or whatever, English or whatever you're doing, but it's really difficult.
Well, to be frank, with 1984, we decided not to go with British accents.
Good for you.
And part of that is because we wanted, anytime that you hear, it doesn't matter age or hearing loss or whatever, but when you start listening to somebody who's speaking in an accent that you're not familiar with, it'll take a good 3 to 5 minutes before you've hooked into that accent and you can understand what's going on. And so we made the decision, based partially off of that, let's just do standard American dialect.
That's wonderful. I'm really happy to hear that because that's been it really is a problem that, and I know that artistic directors want to be true to what's happened, but if you want that audience to really be with you and to keep, they have to keep wanting to come back.
Right.
And so I know that that's something that the artistic directors work very hard on. And how about your costuming?
We have a wonderful costumer. Her name is Erin Charles. She graduated from FAU with a degree in costume design, and she's costumed our last 2 shows, and she is just wonderful. Now, we are setting it in a contemporary style, but she had this idea, she and I were talking about how in this world of 1984, that the party, the government, has sort of replaced God. It's replaced religion. People don't worship God. People worship Big Brother. They worship the face of the party. And so she's started to incorporate some sort of quasi-religious feel into the costume so that our audience can see that. And it's not overt. It's not
like Quaker look of that?
More like more like cardinal robes, like the Roman Catholic cardinal robes.
Oh, really? That's
feel
interesting.
More of and again, nothing overt, nothing that's going to hit the audience over the head, but just to sort of suggest, look, this is what they've done in their society. They've replaced any sort of religion with the state, with the government.
Right.
And so she has these wonderful ideas and this beautiful eye for color.
Yeah, that makes a difference, when we, especially with the musicals, and that's why we go to the Wick Theater, very close with them and with their costuming. I mean, they could do anything. You bring those costumes out and it's fantastic. So there's so much. People have no idea what it really means to put on a show. I mean, I do since I was so involved in it. But when you open that show that night or that day, it took so much. And that's why I just keep wanting people to not only go, subscribe, sponsor, whatever you can do, bring people, make sure there's always an audience because it's such hard work. But in the end, when you finish seeing a show that you like, you will be so much better off. You may have problems. When you sit in front of your TV and you lose yourself in TV, there's nothing like going into live theater. That's why Broadway has made such a comeback. Oh, yes. And I actually say that as part of my curtain speeches because it is. There's something very different about having an actor who's 10 feet from you,
rather than that
So
screen
you have a small theater,
separating
so
you.
that's great.
Well, yes, or 20 feet or however much, but you've got a real human being right there, and that human being is sweating and crying and bleeding and laughing, and they are right there in front of you. There's something that's... I keep on going back to the cliche magic, but there's something that's transcendent about that. It's no longer just watching something. You're now participating in it. You are part of it.
Yeah, that's very well said, Sky. And I really do love the fact to go out. And sure, some people are, it's difficult for them to go. But nowadays, they have all the extra ways for people, the ramps and seats and things. And people need to get up and get out of their houses. It's very debilitating not to go.
Oh, I completely agree.
And are your parents down here now?
No, actually. My mother is a university professor up in Mississippi. That's where she ended up. I don't know how she ended up there. And my father is quasi-retired. He retired from the military several years ago. But they're looking at, they're in their 60s, their late 60s. And so right now they're looking at St. Pete and Tampa and that area.
They have to come down and see your show.
Oh,
I highly recommend that they do that. So it's been wonderful talking with you, and I hope to see the show myself, of course, on opening night. But I wish you so much luck. And remember, you can go on the web to ccpompano.org, and you'll find out everything you need to know. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much.